What's up, guys? Chris Brown, otherwise known as Change Stasis Wellness, coming at you with another wellness moment. Now, today I'm starting something for the next 5 weeks, starting next week. And what I want is for everybody to join with me in what I'm doing here and hopefully tag along with all these little ideas and skill sets to be better, to be more well, to be healthier, to feel better. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the thought process of how I do things personally and how I do things with my clients personally, and just kind of give you some insight into why it works, how it works, and where it may go wrong. And what we can do is we can do this together over the next 5 weeks and hopefully beyond, and be healthier, just be better in every single way. The first week we're going to focus on today is education, collection of data, small incremental positive changes. Okay. So what does that mean? It means if you don't know how this all works, we're going to try to educate you, try to give you some information. And I'm going to throw other videos out here and there with education throughout the process, but you really don't need to know that much to get started. And that's the thing. People think they need to understand how protein and carbs and fats and macronutrients and micronutrients and all the workouts, how all of it works exactly before they can even get started. But that's just not true. And if you always think that way, you're never going to get started. Don't let perfection get in the way of good. That's a quote that's always resonated with me because I really struggle with that. So just get started today. And even though I want this process to theoretically start next week, I want you guys to start today. Start being better today. Okay. So how do we do that? What does that look like? First, I want you guys to sit down, be alone, and figure out what is your goal. Do you want to be better? Do you want to be more well? Do you really want it? Okay. That's a question I always ask people. How much do you care about this right now? Are you ready for this right now? Are you ready to change your life for the better? A lot of people really aren't, and they lie to themselves. They come in and they say, I want to be healthier, I want to be leaner, I want to look better, whatever. But they're not willing to do anything differently. They're not willing to change. They're not willing to go through any level of discomfort. They want everything to feel easy, simple, and the same. They don't want that stress. Stress is good for you as long as it's controlled to the level where it's not just alarm, okay? You don't want to feel like every day is like constant grind to be healthier, because that's not actually healthier. That's maybe healthier nutritionally, maybe healthier physically with your exercise, but then your mental state's all over the place. That's not better overall. That's just shifting your stress around, right? Not good. So we want to figure out, are you ready to make a change for the positive? And can we do this in a good way? Hopefully your answer is yes. Hopefully you're willing to bear down a bit, go through a little bit of stress, go through a learning period to get to the next step. So let's set a goal first, all right? You've probably heard from me or someone else of SMARTT goals, that acronym SMART. Well, what that means, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant to you, time constrained, and I add the other T, I add extra T, tell someone. And ideally that someone is someone you care about, whose opinion matters to you, okay? Try to figure out a goal that fits those things, right? If it's not specific, it's not really like telling you, hey, I want to bench press 10% higher by this date, something that's actually measurable, or I want to lose 3% body fat by this date. If it's not realistic, right? Attainable. If it's not attainable, then you're not going to do it at all because it's not possible. But it might be something you want to overreach on. Maybe you say, I want to lose 10% body fat, and maybe you don't quite get there, but you got a lot closer. So that can be okay. But if you say I want to lose 25% body fat, something ridiculous, or I want to bench 200 pounds more, that might actually just depress you that you didn't get anywhere near your goal. So we want it to be something that won't kind of beat you down if you don't get there. It has to be time constrained. You have to be like, hey, in 5 weeks, I'm going to do this. Because as we know with our work projects or school projects, if you don't have a due date, you end up trying to do it all the week before. And the other thing that goes along with that is someone is there to report to. Like, you feel kind of bad or you get a bad grade if you report to your significant other and say, hey, I failed. Or you tell your kids, look, daddy sucks. That's not fun. You do not want to fail in front of your 5-year-old. That is really sad. And you also don't want to fail in front of your husband or wife because they're not going to pull punches, right? Same thing with your doctor, with your trainer, with your therapist. We have to have someone who we care about, who cares about us to report to, because otherwise it's going to be really easy to give up. Okay. So find that goal. It can be anything. Honestly, we're not here just to make you leaner. It's nicer to be good looking, but that's not something that really motivates people long term. Fitting in that dress, cool. What now though? It's not really a big thing. I don't like those goals. They're pretty transient. So try to find something that really matters to you. Okay. And it has to be based on your wellness. I don't want it to be like, I got to buy that car. That's not wellness, right? And based on those goals, we have to figure out what exactly are we going to measure, okay? So if somebody comes to me saying, I want to get stronger, I don't see a point in weighing you, okay? Everybody wants to get on that scale. Everyone wants to see six-pack abs. It's like, but that's not your goal, okay? Make sure that the measurements are relevant to your goal, not just the goal being relevant to what you want, but the measurements, okay? I hate seeing people get obsessive over scales. I hate seeing people get obsessive over tailor's tape on their body or a bod pod, DEXA scan. Only do the measurements you need to do. The more things you do that you don't need to do, the busier your mind gets, the more stressful this whole thing gets. We don't need extra stress. We just need the right amount of stress, okay? So let's move on from there. Once you find that goal, that's number one. We need to figure out how else we're going to measure whether we're going in the right direction. Not just measuring biometrics, but also measuring behavioral change, okay? Why do people not get nutritional and physical change constantly? Why do they always fail, or why do they kind of lose weight and come on back? It's ultimately because of your behaviors, okay? Typically, I feel like most people, they need behavioral therapy more than they need nutritional coaching. And because of that, nutritional coaching ends up being a little bit of behavioral therapy. I am not a therapist, and I probably don't even want to be, but I have to help you get through these behaviors to help you get your nutritional and other wellness goals like sleep, relationships, etc., right? So because of this, we can't just measure numbers, okay? I can't just give you a meal plan and tell you to go. Those things never work long-term unless you're already highly motivated, in which case you probably don't need my help that much, right? So write down everything you're eating. We need to measure your food logs, all right? The first week, I just want you to write down what you're eating. I don't care if you write how much you're eating. I don't need you to measure it or weigh it. I just need you to write it down. Now, you could even take pictures of your food if that's easier for you. If it's too hard to write it in a log, that maybe is too fast of a starting point for you. If it's too hard for you to do 7 days a week, let's try 3, where one of the days is on the weekend or is on a regular day where maybe you don't have a schedule or routine based on your kids and your job. Those are the days people tend to struggle the most with to be consistent, okay? The next log I want you to get into, and this is only if you can handle it. If the food logs is too much, don't add this log on yet, okay? But this is a log a lot of people really need to do, and they should do it with their food log, okay? I call this an emotional trigger log, okay? Basically, we want to figure out, do you eat when you're emotional? And a lot of people will say no, and then they think about it and they're like, maybe. So don't just knee-jerk reaction answer that question. Let's just think about it and try the log, okay? So, do you eat when you're emotional? But also, do you go grocery shopping when you're emotional? There's a term or an acronym in therapy called HALT, and it's used a little bit differently, but it works really well for this too. Do you go for food or go shopping when you're hungry, H, angry, A, lonely, L, T, tired. Honestly, tired is probably the biggest one in my opinion. Tired and hungry nutritionally really makes sense. But this can work for a lot of different things where you tend to fail or fall off, right? So we want to figure out, when you're shopping for the food, are you any of those? Did you feel that way before, during, or after, right? Because if you are, then you're probably making some decisions based on those very caveman-like, very cerebral, like your cerebellum controls those survival instincts, right? You're just going for what you think you need now based on what you're lacking now. So if you're any of those HALT things, you're probably making decisions not in the best mind, not in the best state of mind, okay? Another big thing is when you're going to eat socially. When you go to eat and drink with your friends or family, generally at night or weekends when you're already a little tired, do you make these decisions poor decisions when you're eating socially? That's a big one. So I like people to do logs when they go out with their friends or family, when they go out to restaurants, specifically because people tend to not write down the bad days, and they tend to just do whatever their friends are doing. And oftentimes that's not the healthiest thing. That friend is not necessarily trying to ruin your plan, but they probably don't really care about your plan either, or they're just not thinking about it. Okay? So that can be hard. We need to identify, are people in your social life making things harder? Is your shopping or lack of shopping frequency, is that making it harder? Are your emotions at home or anywhere, is that making it harder? All right. And then the last one is try to identify those people and places that bring out the worst in you. If you have a friend who always tries to go binge drinking with you every time they see you, or they always bring a whole thing of Oreos with them when you hang out, that's probably not a good thing, right? And you probably need to have a conversation with that person and see if they could possibly change to help you out. And if they won't, if they're unwilling to, or they get angry, you probably need to spend less time around that person. They are not good for you. And that can be a tough conversation to have. It's not a very happy thing. But oftentimes we find out we're only hanging out with people because they're like a crutch. They're something we do bad behaviors with, and that's the only reason we hang out with them, because it makes us feel good to do the bad behavior. But guess what? Bad behavior, it's ruining your wellness. Long term, not so good. Maybe that person can change, or maybe they can be better for you. Maybe they want to be. If that's the case, great. Otherwise, probably have to work against it. But first, let's identify it. Okay, so just to recap, do you eat when emotional in general? Do you shop for food or go out for food when you're emotional? Halt, remember? Do you eat extra bad when you're going out socially and having a good time? And are you hanging out around people who are just making it really bad, making it easy to be bad, or actually even pushing you to be bad? Okay, so that's your emotional trigger log. It's very good to do alongside an actual food log. If you're not ready for that log because the food log itself is too much, don't add that log this week. We'll start that next week, okay? Now, next thing we want to do, we want to calculate your numbers. We want total daily energy expenditure. Everyone burns a certain amount of calories just by being alive and hanging out, right? And then there's what we call the thermogenic effect of food. Basically, eating food burns calories to some extent. They throw that in the equation. And then finally, your activity rate. You calculate it based on a number of how active you are physically based on your exercise. So it's important to know what you're doing for exercise, okay? On week 2 or 3, I tell people to really actually delve into what you're doing exercise-wise, but here you're just kind of spitballing, guessing where you are activity level. To be honest, you're probably lower than you think you are. Most people are not considered super high level exercise. Most people are either sedentary, you barely work out at all, and when you do, it's not super rigorous, or they're working out casually. Some people will fall into the next level. That's probably where I'm at, where you're working out pretty moderately, but you're not crushing yourself every single session. And almost nobody is like the Olympian, like I'm Michael Phelps, I'm Simone Biles level. I have muscle to spare and I'm double sessions all the time. Most people are not there. I would not expect anyone's there, okay? Figure out that number. That's how many calories you would put in your body to maintain your current body weight and body mass index and body fat percentage, yada, yada, all the time. That number is a baseline. It's an estimate. It is not 100% accurate. Don't worry about it being there. I usually round it down to the nearest 100 and go from there, okay? Take that number, write it down, set it aside, okay? Other measurements. If relevant to your goal, again, if relevant to your goal, we can measure yourself either through a scale. Be careful, I don't want this every day. Tailor's tape, waist, hip, upper arm, upper leg, neck, that kind of stuff, chest. Pictures, I love pictures, but they got to be in the same lighting, the same room, same state of undress, okay? And you got to get front, back, side. Hopefully it's either on a tripod or a friend's doing it for you, etc. And you can also get something that measures body fat. There's a DEXA scan, there's bod pods, there's Tanita scales, anything like that can help. All right, they're just good metrics. Take the metric one time this week, set it aside. Okay, if you think it's not right, maybe do it again, fine, but do not become obsessed with it. Do not get stressed out by this, please. If you can't handle seeing that number, don't do it. If you can't handle seeing that number, have someone else do it, put it aside, you don't see it. You need to have the number because otherwise you don't know if you're progressing or regressing. But if you can't handle it, don't see it, okay? That's important. A lot of people will say they can handle it, and then they get obsessive and they get depressed about not seeing numbers move. So we have to be careful there. Next, if you can handle those two things, we're going to go into our weakness and strength list. You're going to go through any part of your life and figure out what are you good at, what are you not so good at. You're going to write it down in a kind of like a pro-con list. And we're going to use that to try to figure out how can we be better with what we're working on now. Because many times people are actually really strong at something with their job, but they're not strong at it with their family, or they're not strong at it with their nutritional goals, right? So we just got to figure out generally what are you good at and bad at. And these are generic things. So you can say, I'm good at data input, or I'm good at dealing with people, those kind of things. And we can try to figure out how can we use those or leverage them to make us better at this goal, okay? Then again, another thing that feeds off of this, I want you to do these together. Identify what has worked for you in the past and what has failed in the past. And that's specifically when you're trying to do something that's fairly rigorous, something that's not easy, but it was difficult, but you did accomplish it or you failed, right? Again, we can use that to leverage how to attack a problem for our goals, all right? And then the last part, and this one can be really tough for people. It may take you a whole week. It may take you even more. What motivates you? What motivates you? Motivation is not universal. I think a lot of people don't understand this. Motivation is a very real thing. It is, but it's not the same for everybody. A lot of hardos out there will say motivation doesn't exist. You either do it or you don't. They'll say, if you're good at this, you should be good at that. Absolutely not true. And the easiest example I give people is look at a CEO of a company. How many CEOs of companies do you see that are shredded and super healthy? Like 0.001%, right? They're super successful. They're hardworking. They're smart. No one's questioning any of those things. But guess what? When it comes to their wellness, they're garbage. Oftentimes, when it comes to their relationships, their sleep, their nutrition, their exercise, it's all in the trash. They're completely unbalanced individuals. And while it can be okay to be 100% some of the time, and maybe you even need to be sometime, you got to balance it out on the other end. And these people are highly unsuccessful at that because they're not motivated to, right? They are motivated to build their business or make money or whatever, find new opportunities. So this person isn't unmotivated in general, but they're not motivated for this goal. So you have to figure out what is motivating you for anything and try to figure out how to push it into your nutrition or push it into your sleep or push it into your fitness, right? And that's what we're going to do. We're just gathering information right now. If you have a hard time figuring that out, talk to a good friend or a significant other, maybe talk to your coach or your therapist or your doctor. These people know you from a different perspective and they may have better insight than you, okay? So again, to recap, we want food logs, emotional trigger log, ideally paired with your food log. We want to calculate your total daily energy expenditure, and we want to measure yourself with tailor's tape, a scale, or pictures, okay? We want to figure out a weakness and strength list. We want to figure out what's worked and what hasn't worked list. We want to figure out what motivates you, okay? Those are all very important things to do. Any one of those things can be dropped by the wayside if this is too much for you. But this is what I want you to try to accomplish this week, all right? We're going to all do this together, and I'm going to do it too, and I'm going to show you guys what I've written down. I'm going to be very transparent about it. I'm going to fail or succeed with you guys, okay? The last thing, and we're going to do one of these every single week, okay? Every single week. And if you can't handle them, we're going to make it easier because we need a success. We need a win every single week, okay? So the last thing we're going to do every single time is find a small incremental change to improve your wellness, specifically towards your goal, but really just to make you healthier and feeling better every single week. Good examples of these: drink a small glass of water in the morning, first thing you get up. Take a supplement like a fish oil, first thing when you get up. Set a nightly alarm when you should turn off technology, cell phones, tablets, laptops, TVs, etc. Dim your lights and get ready for bed. Set an alarm, okay? Ideally an hour or so before bed. Prep workout clothes, prep breakfast, anything like that each morning. Get it ready for the next day to reduce how hard it's going to be to do it in the morning when you're tired. Again, remember that HALT? If you're any of those things, you're usually tired in the morning. Everything's harder to do when you're any of those things, right? So make it easier on yourself, okay? Another one, finish your weakness and strength list. That can be something you can do the next week. It doesn't matter. If you didn't do it, that's your one thing. You did it. Boom. We won. We got it every single week. And the last one, again, finish that motivation list. So anything you didn't do this week can be tacked on next week. This is not meant to be stressful beyond what you can handle. Okay. Again, it is meant to be stressful, but not beyond what you can handle. Okay, guys. So please let me know if you want to track your food log via MyFitnessPal or any other app. That's great. That's fine. It does make it a little harder to tack on your emotional trigger log, but that's fine. If you want to do that, if that makes you actually able to do your food log, do it. Do what is simple enough that's challenging, but easy enough for you to do it. Okay. On those, it will make you put in how much of something you ate. So I really on the first week only care about writing what you ate and starting to track things. So make sure you do only what you can handle. Writing it on paper or an actual log might be a little easier for you guys. All right, let me know how you guys do. I want to hear from people. I want to have some interaction, and I want to give what I did at the beginning of the next week for you guys to see how hard it was for me, and hopefully that helps motivate you. But I know a lot of people don't look at me the same way they look at themselves. So I'm just going to share it to be transparent, to show you that I'm going to fail here and there, and we're going to get through this together. All right, guys, until next time, thank you very much and be well.